Jacinta, yesterday, or now in the States, is Martin Luther King Day, a national holiday for Martin Luther King, obviously. What do you think the man who said we should never judge people by the colour of their skin would make of incoming President Joe Biden's decision to prioritise COVID financial relief based on the colour of your skin?
Well, I'd say he's probably squirming in his grave. I mean, he's probably squirming in his grave because much of the behaviour of Biden and the Democrats and the fact that they pander to identity politics as opposed to getting on with treating all Americans equally under one law, which is how everyone should be treated. I mean, I'm sure he was turning in his grave when Biden said, well, if you don't vote Democrat, you ain't black. I mean, seriously. I don't know. I guess Biden and Kamala will be spending the day acting as though they're acting in the best interest of Dr. Martin Luther King, where no doubt their actions completely and utterly have shown otherwise.
Alex, you've written today a must-read piece in the Spectator Australia on the Flat White website there, that conservatism has become ostensibly weak. And you write very amusingly, for example, that to people on the left, the best idea is the last dribble fest which tells you that despite having 3 gay friends, you are still a homophobe because you once used the wrong pronoun. And you perceptively point out that when conservatives are confronted with these aggressive yet intellectually lightweight dross ideas, more often than not, they simply capitulate. Why is that, and what can conservatives do to fight back against this woke invasion?
Well, thanks for that, Ryan. You picked out the passage that pretty well sums up the fact that I must have been typing that angry one morning of some description. But it does. Thank you for that. It does, however, highlight the point, though, and I do mean that. I mean, I think we have, and I say we, those of us who identify as quiet Australians, conservatives, and I think a lot of Australians do. I think do need to raise our voices. We're looking down the barrel now at a Harris-Biden or Biden-Harris, whichever way you want to look at it, administration, which is clearly signalling already, for some of the reasons we've just talked about, a very, very different agenda, a very left-wing agenda in the United States. Now, we know that in the United States politically, when they sneeze, the Australian political landscape catches the cold. And a lot of that is going to come here. Conservatives have, I think, historically been a bit apathetic about the way things are. We sort of people who look to history, who look to the old principles of liberalism and democracy, the rule of law, these sorts of fundamental concepts. And I think they're being chipped away at by the left. And the age-old argument is that the left just seem to have more time or more inclination. But I think they fight harder. And I think time has come for conservatives. And this doesn't need to be anything more than just simply being involved. Why aren't conservatives more involved in politics? And they should be. I mean, a lot of the heavy lifting is being done by people like my friend Senator Claire Chandler and Matt Canavan and Craig Kelly, some really good people who are doing a lot of the heavy lifting and copping a lot of the blows. So, I say to people, what do you see your Australia looking like in 10 years, maybe less? And what did you do today in order to make sure that these dreams of a stable, inclusive, as we want them, normal Australia didn't get washed down the drain pipe? That this is real stuff.
Jacinta, I don't want to put labels on. You know how much I hate labels, but I will just shout at me if I get it wrong. But let's call you a conservative Indigenous for argument's sake. What do you respond to Alex's point of view there?
I agree 110%. I think right now we have to stand our ground, absolutely, because mostly for common sense, which is completely and utterly lacking throughout our political landscape, and it has been driven entirely by the left. And we have to stand for common sense for the sake of, our children, for the sake of the future. My conservative gay Aboriginal nephew said to me recently that it's far easier to come out gay these days than it is to come out as a conservative Aboriginal person.
What a great bloke. That's great.
For conservative Aboriginal people, we are far and few between, but we exist too. And if our conservatives can, stand up and be stronger and rally around, then hopefully we can encourage more out of the darkness.
But Jacinta, wouldn't it be fair to say that in traditional Indigenous culture, they are far more conservative than the kind of leftist activists of the cities?
most definitely far more conservative. The only issue is the fact that traditionally, culturally, we try to ensure that we don't have confrontation because it can most certainly lead to violence. So people tend to try to back off and to maintain the peace, and that's where the left takes advantage of those sorts of situations when it comes to Indigenous Australians. But, you know, I've got plenty of tools if anyone wants to know how to use those tools to fight back with.